The RIAA, which is the Recording Industry Association of America, just released its 2025 Mid-Year Industry Revenue Report. Are we in the final days of vinyl? Well, that's what some folks will tell you based on what they interpret the numbers in this report to mean. So today, let's take a deep breath, push aside the BS, and actually look to see what those numbers are telling us. It's been an incredible journey for vinyl records. If you're watching them or watching how the sales have progressed and skyrocketed over the last 10 to 15 years. The thing that was supposed to have been dead and buried just kept climbing. And we started seeing vinyl records in TV shows and movies and ads. And I'm talking about TV shows like Stranger Things, or I mean, there's many of them, but Zoe Kravitz in High Fidelity, the series that was based on the movie that John Cusack was in back in, I don't know, 2001, 2002, and Jack Black was in that as well. That was based on the book by Nick Hornby. Is it Hornby or Hornsby? Either way, great book, great movie, excellent series if you have a chance to catch it. So anyway, when artists release new music, they tend to do so on vinyl today. And they'll release it obviously in digital streaming and such, but vinyl records does play a part in that, sometimes in many different colors. And a whole new generation is discovering that owning your music matters. They rediscovered something that had almost been forgotten. Records are the soundtrack of our lives. And here we are in 2025, and records are a thing now. So, is interest waning? Well, you're going to hear from some folks, if you haven't already, that vinyl record sales have taken a dip. Now, really, have they? Is it a real dip, something to be concerned with? Well, that's what we're going to look at. I would argue completely the opposite. And of course I'm going to. You already knew I was going to, but let's take a look at that. So what are the numbers actually telling us? So according to the RIAA, for the first half of 2025, vinyl shipped 22.1 million units, and that equated to $456.9 million in revenue. And that's just the first half of the year. Last year, in the first half of 2024, it was 22.3 million units, and that equated to $461.4 million in revenue. So yes, there's a dip. It's a 1% dip. Let me say that again, 1%. So to put things into perspective, McDonald's, they also reported a 1% dip in sales this year. I don't think anyone out there is going to predict the imminent collapse of the Big Mac. We're all still going to be able to enjoy our burgers and fries and shakes, and I love me some burgers and fries and shakes. Anyway, a little leveling off after explosive growth like vinyl records have seen is just that. It's leveling off. Nobody ever predicted that vinyl will eventually knock streaming services from the top spot. Anyway, that report also states that if you look at all formats being both physical and digital, it hit an all-time high of $5.6 billion. 10%, or $576.4 million of that growth is attributed to physical media, that being CDs, cassettes, and of course, vinyl. And if you look at that 10% of physical media, vinyl records makes up 75% of that revenue. 75%. But here's where things get really interesting. Remember that format that was supposed to have killed off vinyl in the first place, that being the CD, the compact disc? Remember that old phrase, perfect sound forever? Well, in the same period, CD sales didn't dip by 1%. They dropped by 22%. For a format that was declared dead over 30 years ago, it's thriving. And I kind of don't even want to talk about cassettes. But since we're on the subject of physical media, we'll give them their due. They saw a 2.9% drop. Not too much, not as much as CDs did. Now, in spite of all this, there will be those naysayers out there who will point at that 1% and say that the bubble has burst. Well, I don't see it that way at all. Here's a good indication that vinyl records are still a driving force and will be for quite a while. Sharp, the company that makes TVs, now you know of Sharp or you've heard of Sharp, I would assume. They used to make turntables. They haven't made turntables for a couple of decades now. They just recently unveiled their TT100 entry-level turntable. So they're back in the turntable game, and they're banking on a new generation of record lovers embracing the format. A company like Sharp is not going to put all that design time and effort into developing and engineering a product unless they think that they can capture a share of the market, which means that there is a market out there worth pursuing, and Sharp has tossed their hat in the ring. And what does the turntable market look like today in 2025? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's look at 2024. The global turntable market brought in between $450 to $500 million in 2024, and it's projected to exceed that in 2025. Now, 34 to 38% of those sales, turntable sales, are right here in the US. 30%, I think, are in Europe. And if you look at Asia Pacific, I think it's around 25 to 30% there as well. So, what about the brands that are leading the way? Well, I already talked about Sharp, who has just re entered the turntable race. And here's a snapshot of where things stand. Now, what's probably going to jump out at you when you're looking at this is that large portion, the others. That's where you'll find brands like U-Turn, Fluence, and cheaper options like Crossley and Victrola. And it's no surprise that Audio-Technica leads the way with those big brands at 25%. Audio-Technica is known for its, for reliable and really user-friendly turntables like the ATL P60, which I've talked about here on the channel. Then you have the ATL P120, and it's a popular, or at least Audio-Technica's turntables are a popular first choice for new vinyl enthusiasts. And Project isn't far behind at 18%. Their debut Carbon series is a benchmark, actually, for affordable high-fidelity sound that caters to serious listeners. It does appear, when you look at it, to be a very healthy and competitive marketplace. Not bad, right? So if somebody comes up to you and says that vinyl records are going the way of the dodo, please feel free to point them to this video. Share the link. I would love that, actually. Share the link. So that's about it. But I did want to talk about this today because I know that there are going to be, you know how the news cycle is. Somebody's going to grab the fact that vinyl records saw a 1% drop, throw it on some clickbaity title, and you know how it all works out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here, and if you found this video informative or helpful in any way, please like and subscribe. And I also have a newsletter. I talk about it all the time. It comes out once a week. It's free to join, and I'll put a link in the description. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. And until next time, take care of yourself and enjoy your records. I'll see you soon.